Hi everyone, a good evening to all of you. My name is Ashna Sisodia and today we are going to talk about China's Iran-Saudi deal. Actually, Iran and Saudi Arabia recently announced a Chinese brokered deal to restore diplomatic relations. You should be aware about the rivalry which exists between Iran and Saudi Arabia. So China's Iran and Saudi deal, this is a wake up call for India. We are going to explore this topic today, but before I discuss it, let me announce a very important thing. That is, Unacademy is providing the biggest discount ever on subscription for UPSC General Studies as well as for optional. Now you can get 40% discount if you use my code Ashna Sisodia, or on a monthly basis you can access Unacademy courses only at just 2000 rupees per month. So just use my code to get this discount. So why are we talking about it? Because Iran and Saudi Arabia, they have been rivals. They have been, because of fundamental differences when it comes to, Iran, that is a Shia dominated country, and Saudi, which is a Sunni dominated country. So, because of such differences, and there are other reasons also, there's a rivalry exists between both of them. But recently, there's been a deal which China has brokered between them to restore the diplomatic relations. So, that's a wake up call for India. Let's talk about what their issues are first of all. See, Iran and Saudi Arabia issues include the struggle for influence in the Middle East. Iran and Saudi Arabia, they are engaged in an ongoing struggle for influence in Middle East and other Muslim regions. The two countries have provided varying degrees of support to opposing sides in nearby conflicts. Like when we look at the Syrian war, the civil war which is going on in Syria, similarly in Yemen, there are disputes in Bahrain, in Lebanon, in Qatar, and Iraq. Like, for example, in Yemen, Iran has armed and aided the Houthis, while the Saudi military launched an air war in 2015 to prevent a complete takeover by Houthi rebels. The Houthis subsequently launched attacks on Saudi airports and oil facilities. Then in 2016 incident, the two countries severed ties after mobs stormed the Saudi embassy in Tehran. This was in revenge against the execution of a prominent Saudi Shia cleric and a political dissident, Sheikh Nimr. Actually, the two countries since then have been engaged in a rivalry for regional geopolitical influence, prolonging conflicts in Yemen and Syria. And only a few months ago, Iran's top military officials threatened Saudi Arabia with consequences unless it controlled its Persian language media outlets covering anti government protests in Iran. Whereas Saudi Arabia had raised alert levels, citing a credible threat of attack from Iran. So recently, these things have happened between them. But now the question is that China has mediated between them. So, what is the significance of China's mediation in all this? Well, first of all, China, by mediating the agreement, China has demonstrated its vast political capital in this region, and it is contrasting its constructive role towards regional peace. Constructive role. Actually, China has been really active in terms of trade and everything, but now China is politically being very active in Middle East, where China is playing constructive role towards regional peace. Another significance is for China brokering the rapprochement, between these two long-time Middle East rivals. It has key strategic and symbolic dimensions. Like when it comes to strategic, on the strategic side, China needs to maintain the free flow of oil from this region. China needs stability in the Gulf because from the Gulf, China gets over 40% of its crude oil imports. You should be aware about the fact that China is an energy deficient country, and that's why it imports most of its oil from Middle East. And in the symbolic dimensions, I think Iran Saudi deal on restoring diplomatic relations brokered by China, it suggests American influence in West Asia that is being challenged. So China is trying to break the hegemony of American mediation here. Since the end of World War II and especially since the fall of Soviet Union, it was the US that has been the principal external power in this region. But now China is doing that. So this is an indication of power shift. This is an indication. So many have already described this development as a power shift, with China emerging as a significant player in the Middle East. But what has been the world's response and what has been the potential of this deal? Let's talk about that. See, when it comes to US has actually welcomed the agreement immediately despite its confrontational relations with China. US is saying that if it brought lasting peace, it did not matter who brokered it. At the same time, I'm so sorry. At the same time, it sought to play down the assessment of diminished US influence in the region. Then, what about India? Well, India has welcomed the pact. India has said that it has always advocated dialogue and diplomacy to resolve differences. What about Pakistan? Increasing Chinese influence in the Middle East, it may indirectly help Pakistan both economically and strategically. And given the close relationship between Pakistan and China, I think China may advocate Pakistan's case and influence the rich Gulf countries to help ease Pakistan's financial woes. And another is the hope for peace. Because critics believe this deal will not end differences between the Sunni monarchy and Shia republic. The modest hope is that the deal sealed in Beijing, it may lead to a lasting peace in Yemen. It may also end proxy Saudi-Iran hostilities in Lebanon, in Syria, and elsewhere in the region. And this agreement also may yield some domestic reprieve. But in all this, what do you think are the possibilities for India? Now, first of all, China has repeatedly declared its interest in the Middle East are only economic. Some believe it is only a matter of time before China establishes a military presence in this region. Therefore, this deal comes with a huge red flag for India because it raises important geopolitical and strategic questions for New Delhi. Also, this is going to impact the I2U2 because critics believe that the deal is going to impact Israel, India, UAE, US grouping. It calls for India to work on its tie to the region independently of the US, for instance, with Iran. And in ways that project its civilizational and cultural links and the positive contributions of the Indian diaspora. In India's interest, on the whole, in the Gulf, it would plausibly be more secure if the two bitter rivals were actively working to de escalate mutual tensions. So, India is among other countries that will gain from this. I think we have gained from the 2001 security agreement that was signed between Saudi Arabia and Iran, which prevented active conflict for 10 years despite deep mutual mistrust. Iran was one of the primary oil suppliers to India, making up 11% of the total oil imports up till 2019. And another thing is how it is going to impact the Indian diaspora. Because given India's long standing relationship with most of the Gulf states, it has a clear edge over China to become a more reliable partner and mediator. The large Indian diaspora in the Middle East is a formidable asset that provides India with a unique soft power advantage. So, this diaspora can act as a steadfast anchor in relations. This is irrespective of policy shifts and external shocks. So, can we say about this? That India needs to patiently assess if China's growing involvement in the Gulf is detrimental to its long term security interest and the regional balance of power. But at the same time, the recent developments provide a window of opportunity for India. We can also become a significant player in the Middle East. India has strong motivations to push Israel, India, UAE, and US, this particular I2U2, because it seeks to reframe its relationship with the Middle East and gain a bigger footprint in the region. And this should serve as a reminder to India that it takes a great deal of work to convert historical ties and photo ops into actual influence. So, this is about the Iran Saudi deal brokered by China. This is it. Thank you very much. Bye bye. Have a good day ahead.